I wouldn't say I was in denial about it, but I questioned the severity of the problem. You know, and I think a lot of people do. Somewhere in mid-June, I had a relative that got it. I'd spent some time with him on one particular day. My first symptoms were a bad headache a few days later, and then allergy type symptoms, stuffed up, sneezing, things like that. And a few days later, I lost taste altogether, completely. Like Listerine tasted like water. It was very strange. I continued to work every hour I could and was, I mean, just physically and mentally exhausted. I had read the CDC guidelines, and the rule was you were supposed to quarantine yourself for 10 days after your first symptom, which ended up being the 3rd of July, which was when all of the family and friends were getting together. And at that point, I wasn't sick. All I had was 1 or 2 or 3 symptoms, and those went clear back to that 10 days. So the 3rd of July, I go down to West Yellowstone with the family, and we have a big get-together. My brothers and I all go out the 3rd of July and celebrate the 4th like we do annually. The next day I woke up and I was very tired on the 4th. The 5th, I was very tired, and at that point started to wonder if something wasn't manifesting itself within my body. Was I still truly hungover? Were these symptoms of COVID? And from that point forward, I got sicker and sicker. I really couldn't breathe very well. I could breathe on short breaths, but I had a difficult time even rolling over because my lungs were affected in a way that being on my side basically couldn't breathe. My daughter freaked out when she saw me and said, "You have to get to the hospital," and started crying. And I said, "Listen, if you just let me lay here, I'm gonna be fine." My buddy told me to get in the car, we're going to the hospital. And, you know, out of respect for these two, I did.
I first met Shiloh the day that he arrived in our emergency department. At that time, he was quite ill with severe COVID-19. We suspected, and then later that evening confirmed. He was on pretty much the maximum amount of oxygen that we can deliver without intubation and mechanical ventilation. We gave him 3 treatments that we did not have available to us 3 months ago: convalescent plasma, remdesivir, and Decadron.
From my perspective, I don't know if this is true, I feel like from that point forward, I did continue to improve. The isolation in the ICU was, you know, very difficult.
He described himself as going stir crazy by just being in a room with nurses in personal protective gear that doesn't allow him to see anyone's face.
A lot of time to think, a lot of time to consider the realities and the perspectives on your life. I believed I was getting better, but I don't know that everybody else was convinced of that. And I knew that. They didn't give me good statistics or odds of making it through it because of the limited experience they did have. It hadn't gone well. Finally, at some point in this 5 days, I told a nurse, I said, this has gone from a COVID case to a mental health case. I just was hungry for freedom out of this situation. Between truly seeing that maybe I'd improved to the point, but also seeing how desperate I was to get out of that environment, they worked on coming up with another solution and got me to a room with a window over the bridgers and some greenery, and I felt like I had died and gone to heaven. I was so relieved to be out of there. I mean, I've never felt as euphoric as I did the first several days of being released from the hospital because of the experience of going through it. I was on the mend, I was now in fresh air, and I've never been that happy. It makes you put things in perspective in terms of just the help you get, the friends you have, the family you have, the people that care about you, the doctors, Dr. Bethel, the nurses, the facility. It felt like I was, given another life. Once I was home, and you have the tranquility of being home and the peacefulness of it, you start to think, what did I just go through? And as I put the pieces of the puzzle together, the further away I went from it, the more afraid I became of the situation that I had just come out of. And to think that I could have put other people in that condition by my actions really made me afraid for what, of the predicament I had been in and possibly could have put other people through, and how lucky I was to come out of it alive. And and the part that didn't sink in right away, but kind of went through as the weeks went on, was that I didn't kill anybody else, which is a scary thought because it could have. It's a sobering thought to think that your actions with catching this virus will have an impact on other people's lives.
Indeed, your actions can and will have an impact on other people's lives. Let it be known. Good morning and welcome to another special edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association and Black Press of America's Let It Be Known live morning broadcast. Let us bring on now the National Newspaper Publishers Association's president and CEO, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Dr. Chavis, good morning.
Good morning, Stacey Brown, and a riveting, very impactful video to start off this Friday morning's Let It Be Known. On behalf of Karen Carter Richards, our distinguished chair, and all the 230 African-American owned newspapers and media companies across America, we welcome everybody on this Friday morning.
Yeah, and right away, one of our viewers, Michelle Madison, is writing that this story is very important, interesting. She goes on to, I'm losing her comment here. Here we go. Interesting and thought-provoking. He should have stayed in on July 3rd. Yeah, and that's his feelings too, Michelle. This morning, Andre Norman overcame poverty, gangs, and prison to become an international speaker and Harvard Fellow. It is truly an inspirational story. And this morning, we're going to speak with Andre Norman. But first, of course, let us start with the news headlines, Dr. Chavis. The announcement by the Biden-Harris administration to begin providing booster shots to combat COVID-19 has drawn the criticism of the world community. The World Health Organization responded to the announcement that the doses, the third shot for those who received either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines, they called it immoral and unconscionable. They say we're planning to hand out extra life jackets to people who already have life jackets, while we're leaving other people to drown without a single life jacket. The organization said poor countries, including many in Africa, have little access to vaccines, and America should provide doses to those nations. They say if none of us are safe until all are safe, then why are we talking about booster shots while less than 2% of Africa's population is fully vaccinated? However, as global data shows that 32% of the world's population has received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine and 24% are fully vaccinated, there's approximately 4.84 billion doses that have been administered. But the president of the United States, Joe Biden, says that America has already shipped in excess of 600 million doses globally, and plans to ship another 200 million doses, I should say, in the coming months. We spoke, Dr. Chavis, to the White House, the chair of the White House COVID Equity Task Force yesterday afternoon, Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith. And let's listen to her response to that situation where the World Health Organization is criticizing the United States for the third booster shot. And as she talks about even going back to school. Let's listen, Dr. Chavis. Dr. Nunez-Smith, thanks again for joining us. First of all, let me just ask you, no doubt have heard the criticism from the World Health Organization that the U.S. should hold off on booster shots until countries like some in Africa, which has a 2% vaccination rate, get more doses. The president said America is committed to sending hundreds of millions of doses abroad. Any response to the criticism from who?
Yeah, of course. And it's good to be with you today, and grateful for that question. And of course, grateful to the WHO and all of our global partners for all of the tremendous work happening. This is a global pandemic. There is no question. The commitment has to be there to making sure everybody around the world can get vaccinated. I would sort of say a couple of things in addition to the commitment that the president reiterated yesterday, that we are, in fact, as the United States, leading, donating more vaccine than all other countries combined, and doing a lot in addition to, right? There's been $4 billion given to COVAX to help coordinate this work. We're certainly, in support of the TRIP waiver, making sure that intellectual property is shared, working closely to get shots that can be made in India, shots that can be developed specifically for countries on the African continent. So there is multi-pronged activity that the United States is leading and contributing to on this front.
Yeah.
But I think also importantly to clarify the announcement yesterday, which we did not say that boosters should begin immediately. I think that's really important. The conversation yesterday and that we're having right now is about the planning and the preparation. And what the WHO did say is they understand that countries might give boosters to those who are most at risk and vulnerable. And so the recommendation to come out with third shots for those who are immunocompromised, very, I think, consistent with that. And the plan that we released yesterday would begin with the most vulnerable as well, those, for instance, who are nursing home residents here in the United States.
Oh, yes. And Dr. Nunez-Smith, obviously, because of the third dose, the talk of the third dose, it seems more people are growing skeptical about the vaccine overall. But can you put it in simple terms for us as to why a booster shot might be necessary?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we all have gotten vaccines, right? Many of us our whole lives. And I think for some people, maybe they haven't realized that almost every vaccine you need 2 doses, sometimes more. Hepatitis, for example, something that we give 3 doses for, and something very similar to this, 1 shot, a few weeks later, a second, and then, many months down the line, a third. So this is very, very common in the world of vaccines to expect that over time, your immune system just needs a reminder, right, of that kind of pathogen that you see to help rebuild that army. So that's what we're looking at right now is with these vaccines in the United States that are authorized, they are performing incredibly well. The data from the beginning were astonishing to us. Typically a flu vaccine 50, 60% effectiveness, we're thrilled. This came out with 95% efficacy for the mRNA vaccines. And so really, really strong vaccines working hard to keep us out of the hospital and alive. What we're trying to do is anticipate, stay ahead of the curve here and say, this might be what we're used to seeing in the vaccine land, that you end up needing 3 doses to get that maximum benefit. And that's what we want to make sure that people have, is that maximum benefit from the vaccines. But they are working. The vaccines are working and working well.
Yeah, and Dr. People are also saying, you hear a lot of people, I should say, well, does this mean that I'm going to have to get a shot every year, a booster every year? What's your response to that
question too, right? And I have yet to meet the person who says I love getting shot. So we understand, right? Yep. That's the question here. We're very hopeful. I mean, again, what we have seen so many times is that you can in fact get a series, like hepatitis example, and be done. And so everybody's a little bit in that crystal ball land right now. And so I never want to get ahead of our science and our data, but there is good reason to think that once you get a 3rd boost and get really high, and as we work so diligently to get people vaccinated, this is such the key here at home, getting people who are unvaccinated vaccinated around the world, that we may not need, that 4th, that 5th, it may not need to be every year. As a practicing doctor, I do get my flu vaccine every year. That requires an annual booster. These coronaviruses are a little bit different from the flu. So it's not some predetermined that this is a never-ending chain. So what we say is, definitely, if you haven't gotten vaccinated yet, this is the time. It's not too late. It is urgent. That's who we're seeing most affected. So go out there and get that first shot, get that second shot. If you're getting vaccinated now for the first time, this booster conversation is, 8 months out for you. So don't worry about that today. What we want to make sure is those people who got their first vaccination, at the beginning of our vaccination campaign, that their protection is optimized.
Yeah, and real quick too, the situation in Haiti, the vaccine doses, the president mentioned sending hundreds of millions of doses globally. Do we know if Haiti is in that group that's going to receive vaccines from the United States? And if so, do we know how many doses plan to be shipped to Haiti?
Yes, absolutely. You're right. The president did speak already about the 150 million doses we've already sent out, on the way to over 500 million doses promised. And I mentioned again some of the other strategies. This isn't the only strategy to help the world get vaccinated. Right as that earthquake struck, and I know so many people are sending our prayers out there to be affected right after by the tropical storm, and it's a lot. But they were just on the verge. In fact, Haiti is part of the U.S. vaccination strategy and campaign, and right on the cusp of really getting going in earnest on the vaccination campaign. And so, just again, lots of gratitude to the healthcare workers on the ground. There are many people there who are dealing with so many things right now, but also being sure to start that vaccination campaign, get people vaccinated. Haiti is our close neighbor, and we are here to be of help.
Yeah, great. And Doctor, schools have reopened in several states, and the rise in cases of COVID among young ones have soared, as we've seen. With that, I have a twofold question, really. What are we doing wrong, Dr. Nunez-Smith? And let me paint this scenario for you and get a response from you on this as well. A household with 2 children, one over the age of 12 who's been vaccinated, and the other under the age of 12 who, of course, is not vaccinated. Is there a chance, what concern, I should say, should parents have in that situation? The 12-year-old may go to school, the less than 12-year-old may still homeschool, but is there legitimate concern for that 12-year-old who is vaccinated, or over 12 who's vaccinated, to bring home symptoms and pass it on to the unvaccinated sibling?
Okay, so such great questions and perspectives, and it is school season. And let me tell you, that's my household, right? I have a 12-year-old and 2 8-year-olds, right? And so this is exactly our question. But what we know and what is true is children are going to always do better in school, in person. This is true for educational reasons, for social emotional reasons, for many reasons. We know how to keep our children safe in school. We do. The CDC has put out clear guidance. You know, vaccines are incredibly important. They're our strongest tool in the toolkit, but other things work too, such as masking. And what is incredibly sad is when we see politics get in the way of good public health. If everyone follows the guidance that the CDC issued, our children can be safe in school. And let me repeat that, right? If we follow the guidance that CDC has issued, our children can be safe in school. I know my children have not complained about wearing a mask in this past year. They understand the need to keep themselves safe and to keep their friends safe and others. Really encouraging too, 90% of teachers in the country are vaccinated. We see the two largest teacher unions saying they really encourage and support teacher vaccines. That's something we didn't have last year. And now all districts have resources to really maximize those mitigation strategies. So I say to parents, I understand these questions. And it is our job to keep our kids safe, but it is our elected officials, public health officials' job to make sure the schools are following the CDC guidance, because that's how we can do this and do this well.
Well, Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith, the chair of the White House COVID-19 Equity Task Force, we really, really appreciate you taking a few moments out to talk with us.
Thank you. Everybody, please be well.
Take care. Dr. Chavis, your thoughts on Dr. Nunez-Smith's her thoughts, your thoughts on her thoughts.
Well, first, Stacey, I want to thank you on behalf of the Black Press of America for doing that interview. And that's what we do in the Black Press. We bring the truth to our people. That's why we're the trusted voice of Black America. And certainly, Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith is a leader. It shows you the commitment of the Biden-Harris administration to have a sister so well trained, so well prepared to be over the White House Equity Task Force on the coronavirus. And I think what she said was accurate. And just let me speak to your larger question about the World Health Organization. Remember, during the Trump administration, the United States withdrew from the World Health Organization. Now we're back in the World Health Organization as a result of the leadership of President Biden and Vice President Harris. That's number one. Number two, their criticism is and their issue that they raise is valid. And Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith agreed that we can't just make sure that all Americans are safe from the coronavirus. We have to make sure that all people throughout the world, in Africa, Asia, because if we don't, the virus, other variants will come back. This is a global pandemic, and it has to be a global solution to the pandemic. If we don't have a global solution, we're all going to wind up not only having a one booster shot or two booster shot, it will be every year because we haven't done what we're supposed to do as humanity, and that is protect every human being from the coronavirus. Until we do that, everyone is always going to be vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole McDaniel says, I think most kids are okay with masks too when their parents are. It starts with the adults and their attitudes toward being safe and simply following the rules. And that's been the big problem, Dr. Chavis. We see it constantly. We see it all across.
It's the politics of repression. It's the politics of racism. It's the politics of exclusion versus the politics of inclusion. And these Republican governors got to call them out. The governor of Texas, the governor of Florida, the governor of Georgia, the governor of Mississippi, the governor of Alabama. All these people are making their populations vulnerable to the coronavirus. And I just, it's so heartbreaking to see children dying in these states as a result of Black children passing away because of the white supremacy that has been politicized in America.
Yeah, it is really horrible that this pandemic from the outset has been politicized from the former administration, and those who follow that former administration continue to
we must not lose hope. I'm so glad that Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith is where she is. We also have Dr. Cameron Webb, who's actually working there at the White House. Yeah, he's one of our friends. And we have the head of Meharry Medical School working at the FDA.
Dr.
So we
James
have,
Hilder.
yes, we're giving him an award at our leadership reception. You can go ahead and announce that. But the thing is, I just want to make sure that Black America, we cannot afford to lose hope. We cannot afford to lose grip. When times get tough, we get tougher. You know, we have to. When white supremacy gets weaker, we get stronger. So I think I should say when white supremacy gets wicked, not just weaker, and it is wicked. It is evil and wicked for someone to sit in a high government office and deny the opportunity for people to wear masks and deny the opportunity for people to get vaccinated. And even though they are vaccinated, is keep in mind some of these governors that don't want people to wear masks, don't want people to get vaccinated. The first thing they did was vaccinated their families. Look at President Trump before he left the White House. He secretly got his family vaccinated. That shows you not just the hypocrisy, but it shows you the institutionalized evil that some of these people practice on a daily basis.
Yeah, look, Governor Abbott in Texas was vaccinated. We learned that too, as he has come down with symptoms of the coronavirus. Dr. Chavis, we're going to bring on our special guest this morning. Andre Norman's mission is simple: to motivate others to make a change from prison to Harvard. Here is Andre Norman. Good morning.
Good morning, brothers. It's great to be here.
Good morning, Brother Norman. God bless you. And thank you for your outstanding leadership and transformation.
It's been a collective effort for many people. This is not a solo journey, as you say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The luta continua. The struggle continues.
Yeah. And Andre, you know, your story has been told from poverty to gangs to prison. How did you, and briefly explain to our audience who may not know, how were you able to overcome those things?
The first thing that helped me overcome these things was mentorship. When I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of mentors, a lot of people who were actually I would listen to. There were mentors available, but none that really connected to me. So as I got off track and I went away, I ended up in prison. I found negative mentors that I could connect to and I could relate to. It wasn't that there wasn't mentors, it was a relatability part that had me in trouble. I related to guys who were in the streets, who were in the prisons, who had that attitude, who had that macho alpha man thing, which where I wanted to be, where I saw myself. When I finally, after 6 years of being in prison, I realized I was a king of nowhere. I had rose the ranks. I did everything you could do in prison, and I found myself in solitary confinement, locked in the cell 24 hours a day, the king of nowhere. And it came to me that I didn't want to be here, and I wanted to do something different. And I started looking for positive mentors and people I could relate to who could show and guide me into a better path.
Yeah, and you have went on this life's mission, if you will, to help others, to empower others. You have this desire to make a change. Tell us a little bit about that. You've written books, I understand. You've written a book. You do speaking tours. What have you found has been that you've used that have gotten through to young ones?
The things that's gotten through the young ones is reflective listening. Instead of telling them what they should be doing and telling them where they should be, you listen to where they are and listen to what they're going through and help them walk out of their space, not try to give them directions, but actually hold their hand. You have to go down, feel their pain, feel their shame, embrace them, not judge them, and walk them out. If you're not wanting to walk them out, they're not coming.
Yeah, and I know Andre, we have the younger generation today. They have a very, very independent spirit. And so, what about them? What has it that you've been able to say to them though? Because these young ones, they're into being entrepreneurs. They want to do things themselves. They basically are not looking for advice. But how do you get through? How exactly? What is it that you say exactly that helps them to understand that, look, this is the way?
The truth is they are looking for advice. They understand that they don't know it. It's they need advice that they feel they can trust. See, there's trusted advice, and then there's advice that they feel they can trust. And because I come from the life they come from and they've been around, they feel me as they can trust Andre. So what I'm saying is credible. And again, it's a lack of judgment. I've been in too many meetings and too many sessions where people write the $1 Million Mousetrap and the kids don't follow along and everybody's upset. Why won't you do what we wrote for you? We know what's best for you. And there's no inclusion, there's no conversation, there's no dialogue. It's just directives and edicts. And young folks are not responding to directives and edicts. They want their voice to be heard. They want their thoughts to be heard. They want to be included in the process, not just dictated to. And what I do and my team does is we sit down with them, whether it's in their neighborhoods, it's in their homes, wherever they are, in juvenile detention. And first we listen. First we listen. It's mandatory. I can't say that. First we listen. And then second we listen. And then third we listen. And then fourth, we say, well, how do you feel about what you just said? Instead of rolling in with the solution and just waiting for them to stop talking and hit them with the solution and saying, there you go. They want to be loved, they want to be embraced, and they want to be valued. And oftentimes we're in such a rush because we calculated a scenario. If you just follow these 3 steps, your life will be fine. This is an emotional problem as well as a financial problem or a business problem. And they have a lot of emotional disconnect, which prevents people from growing. If you don't solve their pain, they'll never reach their purpose.
Yeah, I enjoy. I like that the way you put that. And also, so we hear oftentimes, well, you know, it's how I grew up. It's the life that I grew up in. You didn't have it easy at all. I understand that your upbringing was very rough. You had an abusive father. You overcame that. But not before you had your bumps and your bruises. Relate to people how you can't let your surroundings growing up dictate your life in the future.
I mean, you have an option. It's people's choice. If you want to quit, quitting is an option and it's available to them. And we say that quitting shouldn't be an option. You shouldn't choose that path. Well, let's inspire them and show them why quitting doesn't work. I grew up in the city. I grew up without my dad present, my mom working 2 and 3 jobs. And we went through a lot of trouble. I went through a lot of torment, and I fell off I was a kid who didn't get the attention he needed. I ended up in prison. And I can tell you all about being in prison, solitary confinement, and arrest. But when I decided I wanted help, I started looking for help. And the best thing was there were willing people who were there to help me despite my past, despite, you know what I'm saying, my attitude, despite my lack of being friendly or nice. And I was a big time gang leader. But you have to know that there are people who are willing and waiting to hear you and help you. I went from the basement of the prison to helping create the Office of Faith-Based Community Initiative. I went from the basement of a prison to working at London Business School and getting a fellowship at Harvard Law School. Anything is possible. There's no such thing as too late. But what happens is we have to compel the folks that they need help. And I go back inside the prisons today. I go inside prisons 4 to 5 days a week, and I talk to men and women who are still locked up and try to bring that back.
Wow, Dr. Chavis?
Well, again, I want to thank Brother Andre for his leadership. And I think one of the most important things you've said this morning is to listen. I know a little something about being in solitary confinement, being in prison unjustly. But I decided a long time ago I was not going to let that break my spirit. I refused to serve time. I made time serve the movement for freedom, justice, and equality when I was a member of the Wilmington 10. And dear brother, I think what you're doing there is so, so important. You know, we have the phenomenon of mass incarceration in America. African Americans are disproportionately incarcerated. Young people are disproportionately diverted to the juvenile institutions. And then they leave the juvenile institutions and go to the adult institutions. So we need more brothers and sisters like you, Brother Andre, who can speak to our young people, but first listening to them, getting their attention. One of the reasons why the Black press of America is still alive is because we're trusted. We're the trusted voice. But trust is something that has to be earned. It's not something that's given. And your voice and your writings and your leadership is trusted, not only because of all of what you've been through and what you are doing now, but your commitment. And people have a sense, and you know, Brother Andre, on the street, people can sense who's real, who's not real, who's fake, and who's really committed and caring for our people. I think our young people will respond if they are approached the right way and given a chance for them to have their own self-expression. It's interesting that Stacey and I, we have a lot of sometimes people from the entertainment industry on the Let It Be Known. And we know they've been able to get people to listen to their music, listen to their lyrics, listen to their poems. And a lot of times those of us who even have our own families. We listen to music, but we don't listen to our own children. We don't listen to young people in the community. So I tell people that the greatest soul music in the world is listening to your own young people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I've been able to do, I partnered with a company out of Texas called Securus. And now, since I can't go to every prison, for 21 years, I've been running prison to prison, juvenile center to juvenile center. Now with the advent of technology, I can make a video, I can take my book, we can hit a button, and 350,000 prisoners actually get access to my information. Because I've been looking for people to join the movement and get in the movement, but you know, doctor, people come for different reasons and they go away. So now with technology, we can hit buttons and 350,000 people can get this message. Your news platform should be on Securus so 350,000 prisoners could see you, because what the doctor just said was serious. And she was, I mean, we're looking at someone that looks like us, who's speaking about health, that she sounds like she's a mom, she has little black kids, and 350,000 prisoners should have heard that this morning. This news platform should be on JPay platform where prisoners are being left out in the sense of technology and information. And with the platforms we have now, we can bring that to them. So I'm happy to be partnering with the company that can actually hit a button and we get real information in real time, because we can't multiply you, doctor.
Exactly.
We can't make 10 more of you, but we can take your voice and with this platform reach 350,000 people.
Exactly. We have to use technology for social change. We have to make technology work for us rather than us working for technology.
Yes.
And I agree with you. So Stacey, let's hook that up. Let it be known needs to be in these prisons and jails.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's particularly given the content that we've been able to bring our viewers. Dr. Chavis, you know, Andre has been, speaking of being everywhere, Andre, and it's not just Harvard. We talked about Harvard, but I mean, you've been, what is it, the London School? What is that, the London Business School?
For 20 years I've been teaching.
Yeah, and you've been to places like the Honduras, Bahamas, Sweden, Guatemala, Liberia, and Trinidad. So that message, Andre, how is it received on a global scale?
When we show up, and when our team shows up, people we care. I was in Guatemala on the side of a cliff after a mudslide, and there was an older lady there, and she was just happy somebody showed up. I couldn't fix her house, I couldn't buy her a new car, but I could sit with her and I could pray with her and I can talk with her, and that's what matters. People just want you to show up. They don't want you to fix everything. I mean, that's the man in us. We want to fix everything. Sometimes showing up and being present is the first part. I've flown to countries where I don't speak the language, but the fact that I showed up was enough to say somebody cares. And when I was sitting in prison, getting mail is when saying somebody cares, you exist. I remember when I used to sit in my cell and the guard would walk by and he would hand me a piece of mail and it told me that the world said I exist. And when he walked by, I felt like as low as a low. Every day, this is every day at 5 o'clock, you go through this torment. Either the world says you exist or you don't. So I understand the purpose and the importance of showing up. So when you show up, it's like the mail. You just got to just be there and we'll work the rest out, but you got to be there first. And so I'm trying my mission in life. I've worked in Ferguson. I've worked in Honduras, Liberia with child soldiers. But we have 2.2 million people in jail that look like us. And I got to show up for them. And I want to help other people show up for them. And that's why I try to make as much content as I can. We just created a series called Securus Originals, where I'm interviewing people from all backgrounds. I love to interview both for you. And we set it inside. I mean, those are our people. They're not going away. Yeah. They're not going away. And we got to reach out to them. And on the back of that, I've been working with the company to say, okay, we want to help people get out of jail. But I said with the CEO, and part of his mission, Dave Abel said, we want to stop people from going to jail. So we're going into the kidney gardens and giving out sandwiches and clean clothes and hugs to kids. Because at 6 years old, a hug and a sandwich will get your attention. And you're looking for someone to give you guidance at 6 and 7 instead of 17 and 18. So the commitment of the company has been to reach out and stop people from going, not just helping people get out and be better. And that's why I partnered with them, because I believe in their mission and our missions align.
Yeah, wow. Andre, what's the name of the book again?
The name of the book is Ambassador of Hope.
Ambassador of Hope. Dr. Chavis, I'm going to throw it to you. I know we love to have more time with Andre, but we're running out of time. So I'll throw it to you for your closing thoughts.
Well, thank you. Well, my closing thoughts are closing commitment. Brother Andre, we're going to work with you. Your recommendation that we get this information that we do on a daily basis to our prisoners, to our loved ones who are locked behind. And I like the idea of prevention, preventing people from getting in prison in the first place, preventing people from getting in jail in the first place. That's the ultimate mission. But again, it's also about empowerment. I think there's so many, as you know, Andre, and I'll just close with this. Some people live their whole lives without discovering their gifts and talents, without being encouraged to find themselves and to know that there's greatness in every human being, not just a few, but in every human being. God has given something special. And in many cases, has given a lot of different things that are special. The work of life is not only to find that, but to lift that up and to manifest that. So thank you for your ministry, Andre Norman. Thank you for what you continue to do, not only in America, but throughout the world. And rest assured that we in the Black Press, we're going to work with you and help further this mission. And I can also, what I see is your ministry.
Thank you, sir. And I'll tell you, as many people I try to help in the world, my son is first. To go from being in prison, myself and my brother and my sister, to my son is 2 years removed from heading to Colombia. So it's not like it ends with us. I mean, the legacy going forward, his father is a criminal or was a gang member. My son's on track to Harvard and Ivy League, and he's going to do wonderful things. And so it's not like about me. I want the kids to do better. And I'm leading. I always say, well, you got a lot of advice. Where are your kids at? Well, my kid's on the way to Columbia. That's what my kid.
Great.
Leaders lead, and that's the way it is. And we got two great leaders right here, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. and Andre Norman. Make plans now to join us for the National Newspaper Publicists Association's Leadership Reception, which is September 16th. It'll be held virtual this year, but as Dr. Chavis mentioned earlier, Dr. James Hildreth of Meharry Medical College, Cori Bush, the great lawmaker, are among those who will receive special awards at this year's leadership reception.
Right.
And
Dr. Ebony Hilton.
Go ahead, Dr. Chavis, run down the list if you got it.
So Dr. Ebony Hilton, absolutely. And of course, our two great senators, Senator Cory Booker and Senator Warnock, just elected out of the state of Georgia.
Well, join us for the leadership reception September 16th, but sign up now at virtualnnpa2021.com. And don't forget, it's the weekend, so watch the Chavis Chronicles on PBS TV and PBS World. Check your local listings every Sunday. The Chavis Chronicles starring that man right there, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. And let it be known, wherever you go, no matter what the weather, always bring your own sunshine. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Wear a mask, social distance, and let's all be healthy. Have a great weekend.